Let's talk about something we all face, staring at a huge, complicated block of text and just feeling lost. Well, what if I told you there's a way to turn that confusion into clarity? Today, we're going to learn how to create a map for any text you read.
You know the feeling, right? You're looking at a page, it's just packed with words, and your brain just kind of goes into shutdown mode. It feels like you need a guide just to figure out what the author is trying to say. Well, that guide, that map, we're going to learn how to draw it ourselves.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get into why we should even bother outlining. Then we'll look at the two main types you'll ever need. We're going to build one of each step by step with real examples. And stick around, because at the end, I've got a pro tip that's going to completely change how you do this.
So, seriously, why outline? Well, because without one, you're really just reading a list of words. But with an outline, you start to see the hidden structure, the architecture behind it all. It's the absolute best way to go from just consuming information to actually understanding how every single piece fits together.
The best way to think about it is like a tree, right? Every text has a main idea. That's the trunk. Sprouting from that trunk, you've got the major points. Those are the big branches. And then, holding up those branches are all the little details. The examples, the proof, those are the twigs. An outline? It's just a map of that tree. Simple as that.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. Not all texts are built the same, right? A story about what happened last Tuesday is totally different from a set of instructions on how to build something. So it makes sense that we'd need different tools, different kinds of outlines to handle them.
And here are the two main types, side by side. You've got your story outline, which is perfect for narratives. It just follows the action from beginning to end. Then you have the teaching outline, which is designed for texts that are trying to convince you of something or teach you an idea. It follows the logic of the argument. Two different jobs, two different tools.
All right, let's get our hands dirty and start with a story outline. We're going to build one right now, using a famous story, the feeding of the 5,000 from the Gospel of John. The very first step is to just read through it and pull out the main events, the big branches of our story tree.
So after a quick read, you can pretty clearly see 5 big chunks to the plot. You've got an introduction that sets the scene, a big problem pops up, some unexpected help arrives, the miracle itself happens, and then you see how everyone reacts. This right here, this is the skeleton of our outline. Now, we just have to add the details, the twigs.
So for that first branch, the intro, the author gives us 3 key details to get us oriented. Where are we? The Sea of Galilee. Who's there? Jesus and a crowd. Why? Because of his miracles. And when? Around Passover. See? Just a few points and the stage is totally set for what's coming next.
Okay, next up, the conflict. And it's not just, oh no, we're hungry. It's actually a test. Jesus asks his disciple Philip what they should do, and Philip's answer immediately raises the stakes. He's like, there's no way, we don't have nearly enough money. The problem feels impossible.
And right when it seems hopeless, help shows up from the absolute last place you'd expect, a kid with his lunch. And notice how the author builds the tension here. Andrew points out the boy, and then Jesus just takes control. He tells this massive crowd of 5,000 men to sit down. You can just feel it. Something is about to go down.
And here it is, the main event. The details are so important. Jesus prays, the food gets handed out, everybody eats until they're full, and then, get this, they collect 12 baskets of leftovers. That specific detail just hammers home the scale of what just happened. This is the heart of the whole story.
And finally, the fallout. What was the point of all this? Well, the people didn't just see a cool trick. They saw it as a sign, and they started calling Jesus a prophet. This part gives the whole event its meaning. And just like that, we've got a complete, clear story outline. See how that works?
Okay, time to switch gears. What if the text isn't a story? What if it's teaching ideas or giving instructions? For that, we need our other tool, the teaching outline. Let's try it out on a passage from Ephesians about household relationships.
So for this kind of text, we're not looking for events in a timeline. We're hunting for the author's main points, the core commands. And reading this passage, 2 big ideas just jump right off the page. One for children and one for slaves. Boom. Those are the 2 main branches of our teaching outline.
Now that we have the main points, the rest is just finding the twigs, the reasons and explanations the author gives to back them up. So, for the first point about children, the author adds a reason. For this is right. For the second, he adds a motivation. As you would Christ. You just follow that pattern, attaching all the supporting logic to the main ideas you already found.
So you now know the two basic outlines. But I promised you a pro tip, and this is a real game changer. This one little insight will help you find the structure in almost any text, especially ancient ones like the Bible.
Here it is. This is huge. Those chapter and verse numbers that we rely on so much, they weren't in the original text. Not at all. They were added hundreds of years later, kind of like a filing system. And while they're helpful, sometimes they can actually break up an idea right in the middle.
So here's the problem. If you follow those numbers blindly, you might completely miss the author's flow of thought. The solution? Stop looking at the verse numbers and start looking for units of thought. You're looking for complete ideas. And the good news is, in most modern Bibles, these are already marked for you as paragraphs.
And here's a perfect example of why this matters so much. The first chapter of John's Gospel has 51 verses. Imagine trying to outline 51 separate points. What a nightmare. But if you ignore the verse numbers and just look at the paragraphs, you find there are only 9 distinct units of thought. Now that is a structure you can actually work with.
So that's the real secret sauce. It doesn't matter if it's a story or a teaching. Your job is to train your eyes to see the author's real structure, to spot where one complete idea ends and the next one starts. Once you can do that, you're not just reading words anymore. You're truly understanding the message.
So there you have it. You've got the framework, you've got the tools to break down and actually understand any complex text that comes your way. You know how to find the branches and the twigs for any story or any argument. So the only question is, what text are you going to tackle first?